Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Our first story takes us back to the summer of 2023, where one neighborhood's festive flag display met its match. Not from vandals, not from a storm, but from a woman in a motorized wheelchair. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. When freedom met four wheels and fury. This happened a couple of years ago. I think it was right before the 4th of July in 2023. My dad and I didn't actually witness the main event ourselves, but we were filled in on the details afterward, so this story's pieced together from what we saw and what the neighbors told us. It was a warm summer afternoon, one of those lazy pre-holiday days where everyone in the neighborhood seemed to be mowing their lawns or hanging up bunting in preparation for the weekend. My dad and I had been working in the backyard, trimming hedges and clearing some old brush when our stomachs started growling. We decided to grab a quick bite from Burger King, mostly because I had a stack of coupons burning a hole in my pocket. We hopped into his car, windows down, radio humming some classic rock station that was already doing its 4th of July countdown. As we pulled out of the driveway, I found myself staring out the window, watching the small American flags that had been pinned along the sidewalk for the holiday. Now, a little context about these flags. In my city, it's an annual tradition for the community to line one specific street about a mile long with tiny U.S. flags in the week leading up to Independence Day. It's not just any street either. It's the main one that cuts through the neighborhood right near our house. Every summer, city workers or volunteers come by and neatly stake them into the ground about 5 feet apart, stretching from one end of the street to the other. They're not private decorations, they belong to the city. Everyone knows you're not supposed to touch them. It's sort of an unspoken rule that they stay up until the day after the 4th. Damaging or stealing them could technically get you fined or even arrested for property destruction. Anyway, on the drive back home, I started noticing something weird. Whole sections of flags were missing or lying flat. Not just a couple, dozens. Some were crumpled, some were broken. They were all on the ground, trailing along the curb like fallen dominoes. I pointed it out to my dad. Hey, what happened to all the flags? He frowned, squinting through the windshield. Maybe the city didn't stick them in deep enough, or the wind knocked them over. That explanation worked until we got closer to our house. A police car was parked across the street, lights flashing lazily in that nothing urgent but we're handling something way. My mom was standing near the gate, phone in hand, clearly having witnessed whatever had gone down. We parked, got out with our greasy paper bags of food, and walked over. You guys missed it, Mom said, eyes wide. Some lady in a motorized wheelchair just ran over all the flags. At first, I thought she was joking. What, like a few of them? No, she said, all of them. She started way down the street and just kept going. A neighbor called the police. They actually came and stopped her right out front. Apparently, according to our neighbors who'd been outside gardening, this woman had been cruising down the sidewalk like she was on a mission, deliberately running over each flag as she went. The motorized wheelchair left little tire tracks through the grass and dirt. She flattened nearly every single one from the intersection to our block before someone finally flagged down the cops. The police questioned her right there on the sidewalk. No yelling, no fight. She didn't try to get away or anything, but she also didn't seem particularly sorry. From what my mom overheard, she told them something vague about not agreeing with what the flags represented. So maybe it was a protest? Maybe she was just angry at the world? Or maybe, as my dad joked, she just woke up and chose chaos that morning. I never got the full story. We didn't go over to pry, but it must have been intentional. It wasn't like she hit one or two flags accidentally. This was a mile's worth of destruction. A few minutes of steady rolling. That's commitment. In my head, I started calling her the non-patriotic Karen. It wasn't malicious, more of a darkly funny nickname that stuck. Every 4th of July since, when I see those flags go up again, I remember her and that bizarre day. The city workers replaced all the flattened flags the next morning. By the holiday weekend, you'd never know it had happened. But my dad and I still laugh about it sometimes. We didn't see the act itself, just the trail of chaos she left behind. And somehow that makes it even funnier. It's one of those strange little hometown stories that no one outside our street would believe. A woman in a motorized wheelchair single-handedly declaring war on America's smallest flags. And to this day, every time I drive by that street and see those flags waving, I half expect to hear the quiet hum of electric wheels behind me. I think this could be a golden opportunity for Karen on Karen action. Karen 1 in her mobility scooter with an impish grin running over one flag at a time. Karen 2 following on her phone calling the authorities and berating the other Karen while clutching pearls. Who would win? And our second story. The day a Smug CEO learned that disabled parking laws apply to him too. A little while ago, I couldn't use my left foot after a skiing accident. Luckily, my grandma had an automatic car I could borrow, so at least I could still get around using just my right foot for gas and brake. One afternoon, I headed to the small shopping district in my town. There are only 2 disabled spots in the entire lot, directly across from the walkway to the shops. Both have big signs on metal poles, and in my country, you're required to display a blue disability card on your dash if you park there. If you don't, the ticket isn't cheap. I pull in and my blood pressure spikes, both spots are taken, and one of the cars doesn't have a disability card. The closest open space was way across the lot, which was brutal with my crutches, but I took it anyway. On the way in, I glanced at the offender's car, sleek black Mercedes S-Class, tinted windows, the kind of I'm more important than you paint job you just know comes with an ego. When I finished shopping and limped back toward my car, the same Mercedes was still there, and this time the driver was sitting inside. I knocked politely on his window. Hey, just so you know, these spots are for people with mobility issues. You're making it a lot harder for someone like me to get around. The window slid down just enough for me to see an expensively suited man in his 50s with that fake smile corporate shark look. He swung his door open hard, smashing it into my injured leg, smirked, and said in a tone only the most entitled person on earth could pull off, "Oops, sorry." Then he gave me a lazy middle finger and drove off. 1 week later, I went to visit a friend who lives near the same lot, and there it was, the same black Mercedes, same plate, same disabled spot. This time there were no open spaces anywhere else except right behind him. I parked tight, so tight that unless he could magically make the unbreakable steel poles in front of him vanish, the only way out was past my car. I got out, gave him the same smirk he'd given me last week, and said, "Oops, sorry." Then I walked off to my friend's apartment. About an hour later, we heard a horrible metallic bang. My friend looked out the window and asked, "What does your car look like again?" We both went outside to find my car with a massive dent and deep scratches down the side. The poles were untouched, which meant the Smug CEO had decided his $120,000 car was too important to wait and forced his way out by scraping down mine. Store employees came out, shaking their heads. Turns out he's a regular, one of those guys who talks down to staff and brags loudly about being the CEO of some regional logistics company. Even better, the store had multiple security cameras pointed at the spot, and everything had been caught on video. They offered to call him for me. When he picked up, he immediately launched into a tirade. "You had no right to park there. You're paying for my damages or I'm calling the police." I cut in, "Why did you ram your way out and wreck my car? You're going to pay for my damages or I'll see you in court for this, for the parking violation, and for assaulting me last week when you slammed your door into my leg." He swore at me, loudly enough that you could hear it across the store, and hung up. The call recorded. The cops had no trouble finding him. The employees gave them his plate and number, and they told me to sue, so I did. In court, the footage sealed the deal. The judge saw him parked illegally, saw him hit my leg, saw him scrape my car, and heard the recorded call where he admitted nothing was urgent. He just didn't feel like waiting. Oh, and they also found out he had multiple unpaid parking tickets. The verdict, $2,500 fine for parking in a disabled space without a permit. $6,800 to repair my car, additional penalty for assaulting a disabled person. The judge ordered him to pay all my legal fees. He left court looking like a man who had just realized his title and bank account didn't make him untouchable. Well played. You turned his "I'm important" routine into an expensive reminder that accessibility laws apply to everyone. And our last story. How my sister-in-law turned my home into a vegan battlefield. When my wife, 28-year-old female, and I first got married, we thought her older sister, Karen, 34-year-old female, was just a little eccentric. The kind of person who carried reusable bamboo cutlery everywhere and lectured waiters about plastic straws. But a few years ago, she decided to go fully vegan and eco-spiritual. I've nothing against vegans, but this woman made it her personal crusade to save the planet one insult at a time. It started with little comments. If I grilled a steak, she'd wrinkle her nose and say things like, enjoy your dead body sandwich. If we drove our hybrid, she'd snark, did you know the battery production causes more pollution than a diesel engine? She mocked our solar panels because the mining for the silicon is unethical. Everything we did, even the supposedly green stuff, wasn't pure enough for her. Then one day she called my wife crying. Her lease was up, her roommates moved out, and she needed a place to recalibrate her soul. Against my better judgment, my wife let her move into our guest room for a couple of weeks. That was 6 months ago. Within days, vegan Karen had turned our home into a hostage situation. She started detoxing our pantry, literally throwing out eggs, yogurt, cheese, and my frozen chicken breast because she said, if you eat suffering, you attract suffering. When I opened the fridge one morning and found tofu where my bacon used to be, I nearly lost it. I told her straight, Karen, you can eat whatever you want, but stop touching my food. She smiled sweetly and said, I'm saving you from cholesterol death. She began leaving pamphlets about veganism around the house, quoting documentaries I never asked about, and rearranging our spice rack alphabetically for better energy flow. She even put up sticky notes on our microwave that said, microwaves kill nutrients, embrace raw living. Then came the breaking point. I was marinating ribs for a weekend barbecue with my buddies, and she walked into the kitchen like she'd caught me performing a crime. Are you seriously cooking animal flesh in my airspace? She shrieked, waving her reusable cloth in front of her nose. The smell of death is contaminating the chi of this home. Karen, I said, keeping my cool, this is our house. You're the guest here. She folded her arms. Not anymore. Your wife said I could stay until I'm back on my feet. So I'm part of this household. And as part of this household, I will not tolerate murder meat in our fridge. That night, I found that she'd thrown out all my ribs, wiped the grill with vinegar, and replaced my barbecue rub with her smoked beet marinade. I saw red. I called my wife and said, either she goes or I go. My wife, bless her heart, was torn. Karen had always been manipulative and guilt-trippy, saying things like, you're abandoning your own sister in her time of awakening. But when I showed my wife the grocery receipt and the security footage of Karen tossing $40 worth of ribs into the compost bin, she snapped. She told Karen she had 2 weeks to move out. And Karen did not take it well. She accused us of being anti-environmental fascists and said we were spiritually toxic and that our dog looked emotionally oppressed from eating meat kibble. The next morning, she staged a silent protest in the living room, sitting cross-legged with a go vegan or go home sign while burning sage. 2 days later, I caught her trying to unplug our fridge to reduce energy waste. That was the last straw. We called her parents, who were already fed up with her antics, and they came over to collect her. She screamed the entire time about speciesism and capitalist brainwashing, but they loaded her stuff into the car and drove off. The silence afterward was pure bliss. We cleaned out the fridge, grilled steaks, and toasted to our regained sanity. But karma wasn't done with her yet. A month later, she called my wife in tears. She joined some eco-commune that got shut down by the health department for unsanitary living conditions. Apparently, living off kale smoothies and composting toilets doesn't mix with basic hygiene. Now, whenever we host a barbecue, my wife jokes, let's grill an extra steak for Karen. She's probably craving one by now. The fact that she moved into your home and immediately started treating it like her own vegan commune is wild. Your patience was saintly. But once she started unplugging appliances and staging protests in your living room, eviction was long overdue. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.